say they like coast to coast, but on demand, raw and uncut interviews, and all without no ads. One says false and one says true, and the rate you sing grows too. Grimerica is here for you. Stories from the listeners, they sent to Graham. He'll read them and be amazed, but Darren may say no. One says red and one says blue, but if it's balls it just won't do. Grimerica is here for you.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Grimerica show. We are going to be chatting about Egypt a little bit later with Dr. Carmen Boulter. But first, as always, Graham, I don't want to be pulled over for driving too slow, Dunlop.
Hey, buddy.
How's it going, buddy?
Good. How you doing?
Your mic isn't working.
Audio.
It's not working.
It's not working. Oh,
That's nice.
hey, how's it going?
You had your mic turned off? That's nice. Well, good. We're recording in the car for the first time.
How's my volume levels?
It sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, you sound good. You're getting past.
So what
Are you
about
okay with that? Are you okay getting past? You seem to have a real issue with it. So I'm forcing Graham to drive the speed limit.
It's hard.
To cut down on the car noise.
It's hard.
While we record, and Graham seems to have a real issue with being passed on the highway.
I think it's just because I got a mic in my face. That's the real thing. Yeah.
And people can see it.
Yeah.
They're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Oh, well. Whatever. Whew. We should have put the Grimerica show decal on the door.
Yeah. Oh, he's talking.
Anyway.
So.
We are driving back from skydiving.
Actually, before we say that, we should just mention Dr. Carmen Boulter is coming on after.
Yeah,
our little rambling, and she did the Pyramid Code, and she's got a new show coming out. I think it's going to be on Netflix too. I'm not sure, but it's called The New Atlantis, I think, or something like that.
Oh, that's right. They got is next week. Is next week
James Brown?
Yeah.
Oh, so it's a double header on cool pyramids and Egypt stuff.
That's right.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a really great chat with Dr. Carmen Boulter, and
that was a fun one. I think Graham's going to do a little video surprise for you guys on this one. So
yeah, maybe like a YouTube video with her presentation and stuff. So.
Apparently, video is nothing, and Graham's just going to pop it together. So we'll send you the link in 3 months.
Thanks for your confidence.
That is confidence. I'm thinking
that
never.
It's even gonna,
yeah. So, what'd you think of skydiving?
Yeah, big thanks to James Nation and Nads for taking us skydiving. And where do we go? Big Sky skydiving.
Big Sky skydiving.
Yeah. It's about an hour and 15 minutes north of Calgary, and it was amazing, eh? What do you think?
Well, it's going to take a little longer than that to get home.
Right, because we're going the speed limit.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. Big thanks to Dave for tying himself to me and making sure I don't kill myself.
Yeah, and I went tandem with Kelsey. She's apparently one of the best skydivers in the world, I think. They were touting, and she was a bit humble about that. But so they dropped us tandem at 12,500 feet, a little bit more, maybe even 13,000, and we got quite a bit of free fall. It seemed like I went by slow for me.
The video seemed to be short, but it felt like it was a long time.
Yeah. And then when they pulled a chute,
I'm glad we chose to go tandem the first time though, because you can't just jump out of the plane yourself.
Right.
So, but that was the best way to do it, I think, because you got the free fall and the parachute ride was fucking crazy.
Yeah, that was the most crazy thing for me. I didn't realize how much of a roller coaster ride they put you through after they pulled a chute. Like, my guts were all over the place. I was ready to puke pretty much.
Oh, yeah, you pulled that cord to the right.
I thought, holy, how are we spinning around like this? I was
you go into moments of fucking... there's moments of weightlessness that I had up there. Absolutely. It was crazy. Like, I had that feeling. The first time it freaked me out, and the second time I was able to be aware that that I was fucking at 0 G, just like,
Yeah. Flying.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was at fucking probably 20 G, or I don't know what kind of G's you're pulling.
No, it
but-
can't be 20.
I guess
You
it
can't
can't be
survive
20.
over like 3 or 4,
No.
man. I don't think.
No,
5 max, maybe.
Really?
We were probably doing like 2 Gs.
2
max.
G's. It was
I'd like
crazy.
to know, though. They probably know. Some of those guys that we were watching afterwards were coming in for landings at like 70 miles an hour, they
Yeah,
said.
that's crazy.
That's crazy.
The landing was the craziest part.
Really?
Because, well,
Because
it
you
was
couldn't get your feet up?
Yeah, it was probably like after the parachute ride.
Well, I don't
That's
understand.
because everything else kind of happened real fast. Like jumping out of the plane happened fast to me. It happened faster than I expected. So
Yeah, there was no
Like
lollygagging
the land-
around
the-
thinking if you're going to go. You're
Yeah.
like, step up and
yeah,
you got to
buddy's like,
go.
you step up and it's a rock, and I'm like, holy fuck! And then 1, and then we didn't even go to 3. He tricked
No,
me.
I
He's
didn't-
like, ready? He's like, 1,
Ready, set,
boom! And then we did a front flip out of the plane,
Yeah.
and it was fucking. Then you're just falling.
And James was out there videotaping you with his GoPro with great shots. And then Nads was out there videotaping me. It was fun.
It was awesome. I am gonna do the course. I think.
You're going to do the chorus?
I'm pretty sure.
Sucked in right away?
Yeah, I gotta get to the point where I want to do the flips and fly by myself, and I want to do it all. So I got to do at least 5 more jumps before I can even do that.
Yeah.
But I mean, tandem was still fun because he let me drive the parachute for a while, but he drove it way the fuck crazier than I did.
Yeah.
But the landing, you had a long time to think about, right? It's like, boom, you're out of the plane and you're falling, and it's like takes a second to get used to,
Yeah.
and then you enjoy that. After about, well, it felt like a couple seconds. It's probably like a few fractions of a second, really. Felt like 10 seconds maybe I was freaking out, but it was probably more like 3 seconds. And then, because
Yeah.
when I watched the video, it seemed like time went by a
Yeah.
lot faster, and
Yeah.
I was thinking it was while I was falling. But the free fall was cool. Did some spinning, some high-fiving.
Yeah, the first few seconds was pretty intense because you're
Holy
kind of
fuck.
upside down. You're looking
Yeah.
at the plane and everything.
You watch the
and
plane
then-
fly away, and then you
Yeah.
look down and you're flying towards the ground, and I'm like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
And then
And
you
the
get
wind
used to
catches
that.
your cheek.
Yeah, and the parachute I was not ready for. The wind didn't catch my cheeks as much as it caught your cheeks. Your little chubby cheeks are just flapping in the wind. We will upload the video eventually. It's pretty good. Graham's cheeks really get going. And I was not ready for the fucking parachute to pull either. That was pretty... I'd like to
intense.
be in control of that. I know exactly when that's going to happen. Because I didn't really get... Well, Buddy gave me the thumbs up.
Did he?
And I guess that was... We're stopping, but that was never discussed. It was Dave. Dave gave me the thumbs up.
Yeah.
But we had never discussed that thumbs up means get ready. Maybe we did, and I was just too fucking
Excited.
in the moment
Excited,
to fucking...
Well, you weren't
hear-
in the moment or you would have heard him.
I was in the moment of looking out the airplane window. Dave's instructing me on things. But anyway, he gave me the thumbs up, and I was like, yeah, thumbs up. And then boom. So I've got a fairly big bruise on my leg. But it was awesome. And then you think the parachute ride is going to be like, okay, well, now we're just going to slowly float straight down to the ground, and all of a sudden,
that's
not
the
even
craziest
close.
part of it.
We're fucking turning right and spiraling left, and you're going down like crazy, and then all of a sudden you go into like, whew, and you're weightless, and then
Yeah.
oof, you're free falling again for a half a second, and then you're like
Yeah.
twirling around again, and then like I steered for 1,000 feet or something, then at 1,000 feet he took over again, and then you've got 1,000 feet, which is probably 30 seconds.
No, it's not even that, man.
Yeah, and the
No.
parachute, I think it's close to that.
You think so?
20 to 30 seconds to fucking think about this landing. And you're going way faster than you picture it, right?
Yeah.
In my head, I picture I'm floating straight
Yeah.
down nice and
Yeah,
easy.
yeah.
And that is not the case. You're like coming in at speed on the ground. And you can see that grass coming up. Like, and we landed on our ass, I guess.
Yeah, you do an ass landing, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the...
This guy is about to turn into
I think that was the
This guy's
craziest.
turning into you.
Yeah.
You
I
see
think that was the craziest part for me was when you see people skydiving, and you see them doing the twirls and the loops. All right, you know, I've seen that lots. And okay, they do that. I didn't realize how intense it was when you're in there and how.
So that's what I want to try. That's why I need to keep going, because I want to get to that point where I can do some somersaults and cruise around a bit, right?
Somersaults in the free fall?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like the acrobatics with the parachute open.
Oh, yeah.
That's more intense than I ever expected it to be.
Oh, yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, that if I would have done it myself, I would have probably just spiraled out of control into the ground, or just not realized how far you can actually push it. Like, it's crazy. It's like being on a crazy roller coaster.
Yeah. Yeah. So what did you mean when we were talking afterwards about it being like a reset?
Well, it's like falling towards the earth at 200 or 300 kilometers an hour kind of puts things into, I don't know, it just clears your head.
Yeah.
You kind of don't have a time to think about, you want to talk about in the moment. You're thinking about nothing. It's almost meditative.
Yeah.
And I don't meditate, so for me, something like that is pretty rare. To just shut my head off completely. And
it's like, also the being on the edge of potential death as well.
Yeah, I'm sure that plays a role as well.
Were you afraid that you were going to die at any point? James was asking us this question, and because I guess he felt like his first time that he was afraid that he might die or something.
I think that's always got to be in the back of your head.
Yeah, but
I mean, I think for me, it's that moment at the plane door. When you're at the plane door and it's like you're looking out there, you're squatting there and you're looking out the fucking plane and you're looking down at the fucking canola fields and the green and yellow fields, and it's like, okay, and it's all just little patches. You're up there. And it's like, I already just watched you disappear out of sight out of the door. So it's like, okay, well, we're doing this. And yeah, you're just like one, and he's like one, and you're like, whoa. And then that first couple of seconds after you flip your head you flip out of the airplane and you look up and see the plane falling away, and then all of a sudden you're looking down. And then it's like, you're just kind of falling, and then he's like, hey, you get to put your arms out and stuff, and then it takes you a couple seconds to get your bearings.
Yeah.
And I think at that moment is when you realize it's okay. But for that first couple of seconds, you can never really be prepared for that. Your body thinks you're done for a couple of seconds. Whether you do consciously or not, subconsciously somewhere your body thinks you just died. At
a cellular level, maybe, it's ready for it's activated fully to keep you alive, or something is happening at a cellular level, probably.
Some sort of crazy fucking this craziest adrenaline rush I've ever had, I think.
Yeah.
So pretty well, I'm addicted to. I want to see that, do that again.
Yeah.
So I'll have to talk to the wife about that. See, because the family was really supportive of this jump. But, obviously there's inherent risks involved with skydiving.
So. Well, I don't know if it's that unsafe, though. I don't know.
But it seems like it. You know what I mean? It seems like it when you're going to...
I bet you driving around driving around the city all day at work is way more dangerous than going up and jumping out of a plane.
But still, tell your family you're going to start jumping out of a plane.
The problem is if something goes wrong, it's bad.
There's no in between.
You could sprain an ankle. You could sprain an ankle or...
On the landing, it could be not bad.
Yeah, but
if your chute doesn't open, I think, you always have that sort of thought in the back of your head that, you could be okay, maybe, if you land in a soft field or something.
You hear those stories about the people that survived a 12,000-foot fall.
I'll tell you what.
They bounced off the canola fields.
I was, any sense of that is gone from me now.
When you're... Oh, really?
There's no chance.
No.
No. I don't care what you think. If you fall off an airplane...
I don't even think I'd want to survive.
You don't want to land in water. You don't want to land in nothing. You are fucking moving. Whatever you hit, you're done. You're done.
Yeah.
Game over.
And if you're not done, you probably wish you were done.
Yeah. Because you're going to be about an inch thick. But, yeah, it was good. It was refreshing. I feel refreshed.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's hard to put I feel more refreshed than I would after the deprivation tank.
Yeah.
By far.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So another big shout out to Big Sky Skydivers and James, Nads, and Kelsey. Yeah.
And definitely something I'll be doing again.
Yes,
so look back it looks like we could be skydive buddies.
Yeah.
We have a little click already. It's like we're already in the skydive click, so we don't have to work our way in.
Yeah.
We're already in with some of the skydivers.
Yeah.
So. And
I'd like to do the flying suit at some point, really.
Said
Like
200
that, but that's
jumps.
That's a
But at
ways
200
away.
jumps, I mean, you can do fucking, 20 jumps a year, probably you do.
That's a long time to wait for the suit.
That's 10 years. Yeah.
Maybe you can go to Mexico
Unless
and
you
do it
start
after
going
10
crazy.
jumps or something.
Yeah, kill yourself. That's the problem. I like after falling,
the
you can
rules
see,
are like in Mexico.
after falling like that speed and seeing how much your arms and things affect shit.
Yeah.
Imagine in that suit, you could easily just lift your arm up and go spiraling out of control into your death, and that's just it. Because when you're spiraling, you can't pull your chute. You just get all tangled up in it and just crash into the ground in a fire. Then your reserve chute can't deploy because you're all tied up. Blip. Nobody around would even really know, but he could be there like, what was that? I don't know. Someone must have fell off the tree.
Right on. So, what else?
Think you could do more in 20 a year? That's, I mean, you can.
That's a lot. Like I don't know. We got too much going on to. We got too much going on to do too much.
It's worth doing the course just to,
Yeah.
to have it.
Yeah.
To have it as an option, right?
Yeah.
You can jump out of a plane a few times a year
Yeah.
and fucking.
Yeah. Reset, like you said.
Yeah.
Reset.
I would do that before a deprivation tank for sure.
Yeah.
I would be like, okay, honey, you can go to the tank. I'm gonna go jump out of a plane. Meet you back here.
I got to do the tank more though, as well.
Yeah, I've only done it one time, so maybe I should try it again.
Yeah, you should try it at the other facility because it's
Float life.
Yeah, it's way better.
You should try talking in your mic.
Okay.
Okay.
So, anyways, I got something else for you. I got a little synchronicity, if you want.
We're driving through the canola fields of Alberta. If you haven't seen the canola fields of Alberta, you should Google
You're
them.
obsessed with canola.
Oh, I just love the yellows and the greens and the. This is like
Against the dark, stormy sky.
yeah, and the mountains in the background. It's God's country, buddy.
So I got a synchronicity,
Okay,
a personal one.
I have no jingles.
What?
I have no jingles.
Oh yeah, right. Okay, I got a personal synchronicity from Mike and me.
Who's Mike?
Mike's my buddy.
Okay.
You know, well, Mike's been on the show. He was on for a little while when we did that our 3rd year anniversary thing. I think he was on for a bit.
RH
So Mike
negative,
always-
RH negative Mike.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he texts me all these studies and stuff. Right. He's all up on the Science Daily studies and everything, or the ScienceDaily.com, which releases all these studies. So he's texting me this new study on ancient DNA. Kind of fits into our episode, actually. So I was like, thanks, I'll check it out. He's like, basically...
Are you doing emails while you're driving?
What?
Are you doing emails?
No.
Okay, because I could do, if you want
No.
to do emails, I could do.
I'm
You
not
could
doing emails.
okay.
I'm just text. So he says, basically around the time of Göbekli Tepe, right? And there's this new study. He says 3 distinct genetically different groups get farming at the same time. So I was like, oh, that makes sense. Like, I was like, is that to do with the races? And he's like, Anatolia went to Europe, one went to Levant, the Canaan area, and then one east towards Iran, India, and Afghanistan. So he was like joking around, like the 3 sons of Noah. Like, he says, get this. And I was like, that's like 11,000 years ago. He says the one group had 0% Neanderthal. I said they became the smart Jews. I was just joking.
Huh.
So he says the Neanderthal came from the north, I guess, but now every human outside sub-Africa has some Neanderthal DNA. So anyways, we're going back and forth about this. He says Andrew Collins wrote about this in his book, Genesis of the Gods. He believed that the teachers at Göbekli Tepe were Neanderthal hybrids. So get this. Not an hour before that, I pulled that book off my bookshelf to bring to the studio.
Really?
I took
Were
a
you
picture
pulling
of
a
it.
bunch of books?
Yeah.
So you're
Not
packing up
only
books.
like 4 or 5.
4
I was
or
looking
5.
through there. I pulled that one off the shelf.
Huh.
So of course it's a sign. We're joking around about the synchronicity.
What's the sign? I'll give you a 4.
And the study is the prehistoric genomes. This is the actual article from the world's first farmers in the Zagros Mountains reveal different Neolithic ancestry for Europeans and South Asians.
Okay.
So basically, populations in the ancient Fertile Crescent are the ancestors of modern-day South Asians, but not of Europeans, the new research shows.
So there's two different strains of human.
Yeah.
Both evolved, but...
So anyways, that was the synchronicity. What do you think,
Can't
buddy?
be that far back removed. I gave it a 4.
Oh, come on.
Okay, 7.4.
7, that's it?
Yeah.
That's
8.
a pretty good...
7, now 7. You're packing up more books.
No, it was like 4 or 5 books I took off.
You know what? It's a 6. $5. Could have even been $5. I was
it doesn't matter.
Books.
The fact is,
I had
that
books.
book.
I had
Even the fact
talking
that I had,
mic.
even the fact that I was looking at that book that night. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I think it's a sign.
I'll
I
keep it at a 7.
better read it.
You haven't read it yet?
No.
Huh. I read it.
So what else we got to talk about?
I don't know. Usually we support
the show. Yeah. Well, we want to thank everybody for supporting the show.
Everyone that does support the show, especially our monthly subscribers. If you're not a monthly subscriber, sign up now. Grimerica.ca/support. Help us keep this shit unspoiled.
Ad free.
Yeah, that's right.
No portals, no sponsors, none of that.
No back page.
The other thing we want to thank is the artists who submit their weekly episode art. And to mention, there's a bunch of back catalog that we have, all for free back there. People can go back and listen to all the old episodes, all for free. And a lot of that doesn't have specific episode art. So if there's artists out there that want to throw it out, I'll throw the art on Instagram. So you can follow us on Instagram as well. And Darren sort of handles the Twitter.
Yeah, and mail your art submissions for new art or old art to nap@grimerica.com. Of course, thanks to everyone who did. Who did the art last week? It was Jeff Wilson?
I think it was Jeff Wilson, yeah.
And shout out.
Ooh, that truck almost hit that other truck there.
Shout out to Jeff. And for this episode, we'll let you know next week who won. Big thanks to our artists. Of course, we do, agree with, like the art, send the art, support the show monetarily, spamgram, review the show, Grimerica.ca/iTunes, tell your friends about this motherfucker. What else?
Leave a voicemail.
Newsletter, Grimerica.ca/news, speakpipe.com/Grimerica.
Check out the show notes for all the links to how you can help the show and also to the stuff that we talked about in the episode. And there's t-shirts available. There's a few sizes of the classic gray Grimerica. What are we asking for? A donation of $25 bucks?
25 or more in North America
and less in Europe.
30 or more in the rest of the world.
Basically, Canada Post is the most expensive.
Canada Post is the most expensive, so but what are you going to do? I think that's it.
Is that it, buddy? Yeah. Thanks for the jump tonight. It was good.
Yeah, if you haven't gone skydiving, I highly recommend it. Do it.
And enjoy the chat with Dr. Carmen Boulter.
Yeah, enjoy the chat with Carmen, guys.
right, tonight we've got Dr. Carmen Boulter with us. We're super excited just when we think we get it, our heads wrapped around Egypt and the pyramids and stuff. Saw this presentation in Calgary. It was fascinating. Now, Carmen was the director, producer, and writer of the series in Netflix, The Pyramid Code, and she also wrote a book called Angels and Archetypes, an evolutionary map of feminine consciousness. Traces fragments of information about matriarchal cultures in pre-dynastic Egypt, prehistoric Greece, and around the world. So that's exciting stuff, and we're happy to have you here, Carmen. Thanks for coming on.
Pleasure.
Yeah, I was pretty blown away there in Calgary. We saw you present, a lot of your information there, and just thought we had to get you on the show here. So it's and you've also talked about James Brown's work a lot, and we're having him on in a few weeks, and I've been reading his book, and it's really kind of opened my eyes to another level again. So I guess for people that haven't seen the Pyramid Code, which I mean a lot of people have, I'm sure it's been pretty successful. Can you just give us a quick background of that, of creating that and what you did in that journey, and then we can get going on to some of the new stuff?
Sure. The Pyramid Code is 5 episodes, and it's on Hulu and Amazon Prime and Guyam TV as well as Netflix, and it aired in 38 countries on national TV. So it really did make its rounds. Basically, it's about debunking everything we were taught in school about Egypt, because we're taught that they worshipped animals. No. That the pyramids were built by slaves. No. That they were obsessed with death. No, they didn't have a word for it. That the pyramids were the egos of pharaohs and that they were tombs. Neither. And so I had met an indigenous wisdom keeper several years ago whose name is Hakeem, and he's since passed on, and no one actually had recorded his work. And I thought it was really important to get him on film before he passed. And he actually passed the day that we put the beginning of the clips of him into the timeline.
Wow.
And waiting to be in the Pyramid Code before he left. So he's really a treasure, and now we've got him recorded. And so it goes into a lot of depth in terms of what the true Egypt, pre-dynastic Egypt would have been, and what the pyramids are for, and so on.
Wow. So, and you were pretty happy with the results of that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I've seen it a few times for sure. What's your favorite episode?
I like episode 4, The Empowered Human, because it's got all the jewelry and the story of Akhenaten and Nefertiti.
Is that I think the last one I watched was the cosmology one. I think that is episode 4, isn't it?
No.
Sacred Cosmology 3, The Empowered Human 4.
Yeah, I watched 3, yeah.
Yeah. That's the most common comment that people make, though, is when they finish watching it, they watch it again.
Yeah, it's packed with information. I like the technological one. I think that was episode 2, I think. Was it 2 or 3? Yeah.
Medical technology, too.
Yeah. Yeah, and then after reading some of James Brown's book, and you mentioned him quite a bit in your talk as well, it's just mind-blowing. Like, it really seems to make sense. His whole theory and the stuff you're talking about really seems to make sense over the mainstream narrative.
Absolutely. Well, he went in 1978 the first time. I went in 77, and we amassed, he got 10,000 pictures. I got 15,000 or something like that, and we just basically have been looking at our pictures to see if something can come out of it, and then running experiments to see if we can make further sense of it. So he's got a lot of the electromagnetic theories put to the test. And that's mostly the masculine aspect of it. And, of course, I've got the feminine aspect going with matriarchal cultures and the Blue Lotus and all of that. So the ancients were very balanced and very wise, and they knew a lot more than we give them credit for.
So the matriarchal cultures in pre-dynastic Egypt, what is pre-dynastic Egypt then, for people that aren't sure? And then was there a shift from the matriarchal to the patriarchal after that? Yeah,
so 3113 BC is the first dynasty, and that's usually all that they're looking at in history books and whatnot.
Right.
So 3113 BC, which was ironically the beginning of the Mayan calendar, but everything before that was matriarchal. And so we look at everything through our patriarchal lenses. We project what we already think onto the ancients, and that's why we haven't been able to figure them out very well. So matriarchal cultures exist all over the world, and they're deeper because they're older. And it's not about women controlling men. It's not the opposite. It's about balance. And, the caring for each other, caring for the planet, collaboration, respecting dream time and symbols and that sort of thing. And we've gotten away from all of that. And patriarchy's, I think its agenda has been to erase evidence of everything other than itself. So that's why we're kind of locked in and we haven't been able to figure things out.
So is the what was I going to say about that? The patriarchal one. I just lost my train of thought there. Darren, you want to jump in here? I'm lost it.
Do you think that's by design? Do you think like it's a bunch of, or do you think it's just the natural path of sort of whoever's the latest big kid on the block writing their own history?
Well, I think we're going to come to see the last 5,000 years as a failed experiment, as the patriarchal hiccup, and everything else was more peaceful and healthy, because we've become very, very unhealthy. So patriarchal ways of being and thinking are non-transparent, power over instead of empowerment, all these different things, me, mine, greed, lies, and you don't have to tell the truth. The truth is an option in this way of being and thinking, and so a very few people get to control the others, and everyone else serves. And if you're going to boil down to what all our problems are right now on the planet, I think it all can be stemmed from patriarchal ways of being and thinking.
Is it shifting the other way now, do you think? Because some people talk about, Aquarius, being in the age of Aquarius now, and some guys like Melchizedek and all that talking about more of that feminine energy shift.
Yeah, so I wonder if it'll be a slow change or like a fast, or does it have to fall apart?
Collapse, yeah.
Well, nobody quite knows how it's going to go in the next little while, that's for sure. But to return to leaving more for the children, even the North American Indian concept of leaving things for 7 generations. We've outlawed, Emperor Constantine outlawed reincarnation, so you only live once, so you don't have to care about the planet, just grab everything and never mind. And so no one knows how it's going to turn out. I know that there's big cycles of time and golden ages, silver, bronze, and iron, and we're at the bottom of the Iron Age right now, which is why we're in so much trouble. And I think that there's more refined dimensions and higher level frequencies of energy that exist during golden ages. And the other trick of the patriarchy, as I mentioned, is that it's only 5,000 years, and you can't look further beyond the 5,000-6,000 year point, and then it makes it very difficult to understand all the secrets of the ancients. And there's been an awful lot of evidence that's been tampered with and hidden. But now with the internet and lots of discoveries and research, I think we're starting to get a different picture.
Yeah. Do you remember any epiphanies of when you first started researching Egypt, and when you in the 70s and 80s, and do you remember any points in time when something that really triggered you to go like, this is not what we're being taught?
Well, that's the whole story of my life, and it started when I was 6 years old, so that was the 60s. So I was researching it avidly by the time I was 8 years old, and I went there the first time in 77, and it was just one astonishing revelation after another. Never a dull moment. So I'd say all my experiences about Egypt and in Egypt were all pointing to something that was entirely new. So my response when I heard the tour guides, they'd say, it was Ramses II, and he had all these enemies, and he killed them. And I would just convulse inside. I feel like I was going to pass out. And I just went, that's not what happened. So it's been a long journey of retracing maybe steps from another incarnation to try to put the story back together.
And then what made you go into your education background? And you were in the University of Calgary for a while there. So did you automatically evolve into the scientific background as well?
Definitely, but I was trained as a teacher. I worked as a psychologist for 17 years. I did 12 years post-secondary education. I did do graduate level archaeology work, but I realized that you can't tell a different story. If you're an archaeologist, you've got to repeat the old story, even if the data doesn't measure up. So I thought, well, I'll never survive that. So I decided to do my PhD in linguistics, and I taught abroad. I've lived in 6 countries and been to 59, and I've been studying things in the world And now I'm doing a more independent part with Egyptology and archaeology.
Wow. So as you mentioned, the internet's, filling us full of all these really fascinating discoveries, and you talk about the culture changing a little bit, and I think we're realizing now finally, at least in some parts of the media, that those advanced cultures going further back than we ever thought. There's a bunch of evidence now. You talked about the sheer volume of pyramids being found all over the world lately. You want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, well, apparently there's 250 pyramids in China, and last week I started to plot them to Google Earth, and I found 45 that you can easily see from space. And that's just astonishing. Like, people don't know that. There's pyramids in the Canary Islands, in the Mauritius, in South Africa, and South America. Yeah, well, all over South America, Peru, Bosnia, and there's some in Bolivia, Serbia, right? There's really a lot of pyramids on the planet, and many of them are covered with soil, and that shows that they're pre-diluvian. And so when we had a world flood, they were covered in silt, and then when the water receded, there was enough soil to make vegetation grow and trees. And so a lot of people are in total denial about the possibility that a pyramid can be underneath trees or a jungle, and that's what's being discovered now. And it means they're more than 12,000 years old.
And give us an idea of the sheer volume. Like, I thought I heard you say somewhere of somebody's doing, adding this all up, and he's saying it's upwards of 100,000 now or something like that?
Well, that's what the claim is, and I don't ever want to just go say and repeat what someone else said without being able to verify it, but it's quite an undertaking to be plotting all these pyramids. So, and some of them are younger too. Like, there's a lot of different styles of pyramids. So the oldest ones are the highest technology, and the newest ones are falling apart. Right. And I think that's a point that we really need to take notice of. Yeah, that at some point the workmanship kind of, or at least maybe the education, or they stopped caring about how they build things. Like, I often think about, your guys' research and how the pyramids were designed a certain way, and I think of this, just a lack of that kind of design that goes into our buildings now. We just build shit. Like, we don't even care if there's any kind of alignments or anything like that. So it's like, it's almost gone to the point where there's zero, well, unless you're talking about Masonic symbols in the way like Washington DC's laid out or stuff like that. But I mean, in general, we don't really follow it. No, it's really dumbed down. In fact, I went on a desert expedition in search of a place that might have had ties to Atlantis. And it turned out that it was a 30-year-old structure that had been built by the Air Force, and it was falling apart 30 years later. Yeah, exactly.
Is there anything...
Other on the back and say we're the smartest we've ever been.
Yeah.
Are there any pyramid suspects in Canada?
Well, I've been nudged about that, and apparently on Vancouver Island there's some, but I've got no evidence of that yet. Not that I'm not going to go snoop around and see what I can find out, but, we have to have some concrete evidence. You can't just say, yeah, there's one over there. No, there has to be something more verifiable, let's put it that way.
Was the island, was it under the glaciers? Like, I guess, because anything in Alberta or Saskatchewan would have been ground down to dust.
Mm-hmm.
Was the island under the same sort of ice sheet?
I don't know that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know, because I keep coming back to that only like 11,500 or 12,000 years ago we were under, a mile or two of ice. Like, it's still mind-blowing to think that. It really wasn't very long ago.
No, not if you start looking further and further and further back, because that's basically what's happening to most of the researchers that are doing credible work is the dates keep going back.
Yeah.
And carbon-14 dating is notably gets very weak after 30,000 years ago. But the dates that are coming up for the Bosnian pyramid, I saw the radiocarbon certificate myself, and it was 38,000 years old. And the pyramid of Gunung Padang, where I just was last December, 26,000 years old. And so, and the Giza pyramids keep getting redated. There's absolutely no possibility that they were built in 2450 BC, and that's what they keep on telling us. And so we really have to grasp that the history that we've been given And what we get taught in school is all wrong, pretty much all wrong.
Do you think that's by design? Like, do you think it's like a hidden hand, or do you think that's just old people who don't want to give up on their theories?
Well, both. I mean, certainly nobody wants to rewrite all the history books, but I think that we have been distracted and trained, socialized in a way that we don't know how to think creatively. We don't have discernment, and so we are trained to believe what the person says on the news, in Hollywood, in school. And so instead of being self-reflective and checking and doing our own research, we're told what the right answer is in school, and we've got to give it back. So that has nothing to do with knowledge. It has nothing to do with wisdom, and it has nothing to do with the truth. It has to do with what the teacher says the answer is.
Right.
And that's what we live with. That's what we, school is no fun for most kids because of that. So it's not developing the person. It's not about consciousness. It's about making everybody compliant and obedient.
Yeah. Yeah. We get into that a lot on the show for sure. We had one on just how bad the education system was, and it's pretty horrific. So what are some of the adventures that come to mind? I was listening to your and watching you present there, and there was stuff like the Dundera ceiling and the Hall of Records search. Like, you were on quite a few little adventures there, sort of finding some new stuff. There was a massive underground complex. Any of those stand out for you?
All. Oh. Let's start with Hawara. I made a discovery started on Google Earth and found a place that replicated what was in ancient maps. People had been there before and driven there.
Sorry, ancient what? Maps.
Flinders Petrie he had a book, 10 Years Digging in Egypt, 1881 to 1891.
Yeah.
And he made some discoveries, and of course they had limited equipment then. And so there were teams that had gone to this site. It's 95 kilometers south of Giza, the Great Pyramid. And they had done some very weak ground-penetrating radar and knew that there were anomalies underground. But now we have very, very powerful space archaeology, high-definition ground-penetrating radar that's looking at longitudinal waves, and you can look through. If you hit something, you can look through it. If you hit something else, you can still go deeper. Mm-hmm. And this equipment can go and measure something that is 6 kilometers deep into the earth. So when I found the GPS of this location, I was able to process it through this sophisticated technology and learn that there is a complex that's 81 acres across, and that there's 2 distinct levels. One, the ceiling is 20 meters deep, and the second is 40 meters deep. And there's enormous chambers, 6 of which are bigger than Olympic-sized swimming pools, all underground. And so when I got the scans, I was able to do measures and then have a 3D model made, and it's just completely unbelievable, because this technology will also show precious jewels and precious metals and that sort of thing, and there's stuff down there.
Is that the labyrinth, maybe?
Mm-hmm. It's the labyrinth. That's what it's called. Herodotus started calling it the labyrinth in 550 BC.
What else was missing? Isn't there something else missing?
What do you mean?
I remember having a conversation with John Ward. Is that stuff underwater too then, or is that just under sand? Because isn't the water table not too far down?
Well, that's the whole thing that Flinders Petrie said. Nobody wants to go dig there because there's an artificial canal and it'll leak, so just leave it alone. And what that did is it kept everybody away from it. And there was also an ancient text, old, like 1850 or something, that was written, and they basically were talking about this place because it's got many, many layers to it, and they're talking about it being flooded down there too. But my information from doing a complete separate scan from water is that the water's underneath this, all of it.
So is there any speculation onto what it was mainly used for?
Well, we haven't done, we don't have permits to go and excavate. It would only be pure speculation.
That's okay. We're allowed to speculate here, totally.
Well, everybody's looking for the Hall of Records, and, let's put the whole story together. If we're starseed, if there is off-planet life and information, how did we get here? What are we made of? And if there was some kind of an interaction with off-planet beings, where would they put the stuff after they were here? I think it's really old. Older is deeper, so the lower level is going to be much older than the other one. But there's lots of ancient texts that talk about advanced knowledge of a disaster in Atlantis, and digging around for as many years as I have, I've got 3 of them confirmed, not one. And if there was advanced knowledge, it was like a time capsule. If the whole thing's going down, what are we going to do with the stuff and the technology, and how do we preserve it? So that's a best guess. But the chances of being able to go and do an excavation are slim at best. Running around Egypt as much as I have and getting permits to do things, it's a very slow go, and the answer is usually no.
Wow, that's got to be frustrating. You got these things that are just begging to be, researched, and you can't even get in there.
That's correct, and I've managed to do quite a bit over there, considering. But one of the things that's true is, as this scan is used around the world, and they actually go and excavate at some of the places, they're getting the verifiability that the objects and the substance that the scan was detecting is actually there. So, and as I keep saying, older is deeper. So if we're going to get the real old stuff, the surface stuff came up first. So even at Hawara, there's a Ptolemaic layer, and that's Antony and Cleopatra time frame, and then there's a Roman layer. So it's the site actually has 4 different distinct time frame archaeological levels.
Wow.
Have you ever had a guilty little thought of just like leveling one of the pyramids, just see what might be hiding around in there or underneath it?
No, but I did spend 5 years on the Giza Plateau, getting in there with some of the help from the watchmen and going in and out of the holes, because initially, when I was reading about this place that was known, they said it was on the west side of the Great Pyramid. So, and then the tunnel system was underneath. So I spent 5 years. There's a tunnel system down there, no question, but it's not this one. Right. And so all they had to do in the book is say on the west side of the Giza, but it's really over here, and that keeps everybody away from the spot. So no, I don't bring stones home or any of that. And I think everything has to be done officially, but I'm very keen on taking pictures and video and making sense of what we're seeing, with using animation and various things to put the story back together if we can't do it. So we still know that there's something down there. And so, it's a fascinating situation. But it's not the only place that new discoveries are being found, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, it's only a matter of time before this ground-penetrating radar gets to see, all our coastlines as well, like in all these areas where before the Ice Age, it wasn't flooded with water. Like imagine the difference the Earth looked like before the Ice Age, right? Before the end of the Ice Age.
Right, and then there's all places like Nan Madol, and that's half underwater, and places in India when they had the big tsunami, and then they realized that there was a whole city underneath, and Yonaguni on the south tip of Japan, in the north of Taiwan, there's a pyramid structure underwater there. There's things that are so deep off the coast of Cuba that they can't even send sea divers down. They send submersible cameras. So, and then you got Malta where the tracks end, and then there's a cliff, and the rest of it's down and underneath the water. Even Antony and Cleopatra's palace near Alexandria off the coast, the statues, everything's still down there. So yeah, the water levels changed dramatically on the planet, and we didn't even have scuba diving till 1954. So,
or fossil fuels.
Yeah.
What does that have to do with anything, Darren?
Have you looked at any of the work of Randall Carlson and his theories on the flash floods?
Yep, I have.
What do you think about that?
Oh, I think he's on to something, and he's been working with Graham Hancock. But their focus is the last flood, which is great because a lot of people don't have enough information about that. But I want to look behind that and behind that and behind that, because there's many, many layers to it all.
Yeah.
So you think we've been kicking around for probably, more like millions of years or hundreds of thousands at least?
Well, there's evidence of both, and Michael Cremo, who I spoke with at Modern Knowledge Tour in Vancouver and Victoria last year, he's the one that's using potassium argon dating and finding skeletons that he's dating to over 1 million years old. So, this is going on, and somehow it's not common knowledge, at all. And there's lots of things from the 100,000 year range, and Klaus Donna is another one that has been finding out of place artifacts and having things dated, but there's also corruption in the dating labs. So the photoluminescent and thermoluminescent dating labs in South America, for example, aren't allowed to show anything older than 6,000 years old, which is the paradigm that we were talking about earlier.
Wow.
And so, not only do you have to, fight to get permission to do things, you've got to, see if a lab is going to be legitimate. And I've had experience with this because I went to I call it the Sitchin conference, but there was a bunch of scientists, Paul Laviolette, Michael Talbot, these people in Portland in 97, and they had a roundtable discussion with the scientists, and somehow they invited me to come to it, to be a fly on the wall, and they decided to discuss dating techniques. And one scientist said that they had one sample that they divided into 14 pieces and sent to 14 labs to get carbon-14, and it came back with 14 dates.
No way.
Yes.
And this is back in 97.
Yes.
Wow. So obviously varied, not just 14 different dates, but probably quite a variance, or?
Absolutely. And so it's unreliable, and then say plus or minus 2,000 years. Well, how reliable is that? And most everything is older than it looks. And so there's all kinds of ways that samples can get contaminated too. Like if you pick it up with your hand, then a little fleck of your skin goes on, and then it contaminates the age. And so, you put it in a plastic bag, it gets moldy, and then you're dating the mold, So it's really quite imprecise out there, and there isn't a big concerted effort to help us decipher all this. It's kind of, an obscure thing, yet people can't give up on this idea of who are we and where did we come from.
Yeah, we had Michael Cremo on, like episode 10 or something.
Yeah,
I think you should throw it in the show notes. Yeah, people should check that one out.
Yeah, he's great.
Huh. But he suffered, though, because he's come out with ideas. I mean, there's a wonderful YouTube video of him from 20 years ago on the news and on a talk show and that kind of thing. And people are like, really? How can that be? And 20 years later, he's still doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's catching on in mainstream. But there's, reasons for this, too, because archaeology won't talk to anthropology, and social anthropology won't talk to cultural anthropology, and so everybody's in their own little box.
Yeah.
And the only way we put this puzzle back together is by looking at geology and all kinds of different things. And many, many different subjects have to come together, plus our own sense of discernment. Because if you start digging around and researching this stuff, your head will be spinning in a few hours because there's loads of contradictions. So how do you know? And I always emphasize with my students and my presentations and my TV series, the audience should never ask, how do you know, or what do you mean? It's up to us to spell that out. And I've heard lots of people get up on stage and says, prove me wrong. It's up to you to prove me wrong. And I'm right because I said so. Mm-hmm. And that's no way to present. I think that we need to respect the audience and really give them more than one, I call it triangulation, like 3 places it comes from.
Yeah.
And something real to show, not something that's a fantasy that you need, a graphic artist to make up the picture. No, a real picture of a real item, something, right? And so that's when the rubber starts to hit the road and we start to really feel that this is right. And I think that's why people watch the Pyramid Code over and over, because it's not telling you what to think. It's asking questions and showing you things, and you go, oh, and then it's up to you to decide what you think.
Yeah, well said. So did James Brown's book fall into that category for you then? Like, it seemed like when I was reading that recently, because I wanted to sort of also sort of prep for, I was watching the Pyramid Code as well, and I remember your presentation in Calgary there, but it was one of those things, like, it really just makes sense to me. Like, he's talking about looking at all the hieroglyphs and all the evidence in a different way. Like, forget about what you learn from the from the Egyptologists and all that and look at it in this different way, and it really makes sense. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff in there that's being ignored, and whether it's about ejaculation or erectile things.
You went right there, right?
Yeah. And no, because he talks about gold and how it's very conductive to electricity. Like he really shows it well that this could be a major part of Egyptian culture. Do you want to just touch on that a bit and what you think of that?
Okay, so the book is called Electric Ancient Egyptians, Penetrating the Atom with Electrified Sperm. And of course, I just about fell over when I read that subtitle. But, he outlines his argument logically, and he hedges, which is what we're taught to do doing a PhD program. We don't say, it is, I know, this is it, it proves. We don't use that word. The data seems to indicate.
Yeah.
I'm feeling more comfortable with the theory of, right? So you give yourself some space. So if there's a major discovery in 50 years, from what we know now, these are the conclusions we're drawing. So you don't be so definitive. So he was very careful with that. I didn't have any problem reading his book. It's 400 pictures in it, and he's saying, look, put the circle around. And then he shows you another and another and another, and you're like, you know what? I've been staring at that for a long time, and I never noticed.
Yeah.
And so I really respect his work a lot. But what he did is he created a lab, and he saw those he calls them Faraday cages. There's shrines that King Tut had one inside. They said that was one inside the other, and the smallest one had the sarcophagus, except the sarcophagus would never fit in there. So they were using their gold on the inside. They had these gold sandals. I had noticed all these things and these instruments and, containers and the kind of processes and the way they're in a little box and they've got their feet up on a footstool. But I hadn't put together that sometimes the footstools are wooden and they don't conduct electricity, and sometimes they do. So what James did is he made what he calls an arcs and sparks lab. And so he wanted to test this stuff. So he got a replica of King Tut's throne, which is a gold chair, and the shoes, and the conducting shoes, and went and sat inside, and I sent a crew down to film him doing this. And he couldn't have a lavalier mic on because it would have shorted the mic out. So he holds his finger, and here comes the videographer, and the spark goes across the fingers. I've got the footage of it.
Yeah.
But what he also did is he figured out what Ed Skellion did. Are you familiar with Coral Castle?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a show. We did a show on that a while back too.
Okay, so look at this. James sent me original footage, the reels of 16 millimeter of some of the only footage of Ed Skellion on site.
Wow.
And I had it digitized. And so I'm very, very proud to have this. So, Anyway, so Ed Skellion would, he had hammered a metal plate onto each of his boots. And when I was there, I saw his boots, but they weren't turned over. And I think James, the biggest contribution he's making is making the connection of what Ed Skellion was doing, because he worked alone and he didn't share his secrets. So he sent me a care package of his notes and a typewritten manuscript of somebody who wrote the story of his life, and things that he thought. And he in there he says, if there had been a word called magnicity, I would have used it. And I've been saying all along that the ancient Egyptians had to protect themselves so they didn't get electromagneticuted. And so we want to separate electricity and magnetism. And he's very, very strong about the idea that they exist in concert with one another, and that it has to do with timing and anti-gravity, and the equipment is there. And I've got footage of all this for the New Atlantis, my next series. And it's finally we've got something that we can demonstrate about what Skellion was doing.
Huh.
Didn't Scott Russell, we talked to a guy who said he had it all figured out, but then we never heard from him again.
Well, I've been sent a number of books. I mean, people send me stuff all the time, and I get a little way in and go,
It was Scott Russell.
Yeah, but he didn't have the electromagnetism figured out.
For him, it was a machine that he was using to cut the coral.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'm always looking at, is it verifiable? I'm not familiar with Scott's work, but is it verifiable in more than one way? And that's, James has got the pictures, he's got his theory, and then he tested his theory, and then he lined it up with what Lead Scallion was doing. But James was going to buy the place. He's in his 70s. And so when Lead Scallion died, he went to Florida and he tried to buy the place because there was no next of kin. And I've even got a photocopy of the check and the offer to purchase. I mean, I'm a big fan of James, and he's been so incredibly generous to share his material with me.
That's great. Yeah, it really makes me wonder if Ed was onto something and the Egyptians were onto something about really harnessing, like even if it's just in small quantities, harnessing this electricity and moving it back and forth through the body and all this kind of stuff. And then, and then there's all Tesla and all these other conspiracies you can talk about. And then there's people flying around in these UFOs, and they talk about the secret space program. And I mean, this technology is probably known in the black world, and we're just sitting here scratching the surface on what the ancient Egyptians did or what some other, loner did somewhere, and yet somebody's utilizing it, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing too is that, I've been saying for a little while here that there's the problem of, what's going on the planet, GMOs, chemtrails, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Dark budgets and, underground this and that. And there's that problem, which is very serious. But there's another problem that 90% of people don't have any idea that it's going on, and they think the government would never lie to us and all that. That's another problem, that people are distracted and we become spectators and consumers, and that's supposed to be enough and don't question anything. Well, we're the 10% perhaps that are questioning everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did want to ask you before we run out of time as well about Tomsk. Is that how you pronounce it? It's very fascinating to me. Do you want to talk to some people about that as well?
Yes. Tomsk is in the center of the landmass of the Russian continent. And in the same fashion as Giza is the center of the landmass, the widest and the longest part of the African continent, it's been cited, it's in Siberia, as a site, and it's 1,000 acres, and there's a project that bears two names. One is Project 12, and the other name is the New Atlantis. And so I was speaking in St. Petersburg at a conference, and I was approached by a man named Valery Uvarov, who had been working with Pyramid Energy for a while, and he asked if I would make his next documentary series, and he wanted it to be called The New Atlantis. So he gave me a lot of material, and I went through all the scientific aspects of it and wrote a science manuscript based on that, and I was doing the treatments for the next series, and then the funding that he had fell through, and I decided to carry it on my own, which has been very challenging because projects like this need funding. Mm-hmm. But what they're doing is they have 1,000 acres, and there's 12 different domains. So they're building the center pyramids there, and then they're building 8 pyramids in 4 concentric circles. So the total of 33 functional pyramids that's using the technology that Valerie understood in a similar way that Lead Scallion did. And so it's quartz crystal under pressure with double helix, and it's poured stones, geopolymers, a la Joseph Davidovich's work, and crystals inside that are like 12 feet high, and it's just unbelievable what they're doing. Now, each of the domain of communication, transportation, health, agriculture, education, beekeeping, all of the things that don't work in our world that could be improved, free energy, are being developed on this site. And they're well underway. I think they're probably 6 or 7 years in. And I was just at the Global Pyramid Conference, and a man named Red Milo was reporting on it. Mm-hmm. And they're making good progress. And so people are having spontaneous healings in the pyramid. There's 3 chambers. It's crushed quartz polymer casing stones with a real pyramidion on the top. And it is a brilliant, brilliant project. And so it's also part of the New Atlantis in that, how could we take the ancient values and what are people doing now? Right. And it's really surprising how many incredibly positive things are happening, but the mainstream media doesn't want us to know.
No. Who's funding that whole thing? It sounds like a really new age modern Venus project kind of thing.
Absolutely. That is a good metaphor to go with it. They are getting partially government funding, and when I mentioned that to my friend in Chicago, she's like, "Oh, well, then they're going to wreck it." And I'm like, "Well, that's what happened here, but it didn't happen there." So we've got, we project with the cultural lenses that we have from here onto what they're doing, and everybody's still. I mean, they showed us lineups of men in trench coats in a bread line with no bread, and CNN left us there and didn't bother to tell us how well they're doing in Russia and how sophisticated everything is, and the architecture, and vegetarian gourmet restaurants and fashion, and the Hermitage Museum. And it's just like, I was so impressed with St. Petersburg. And I came back and people, no, the KGB are hiding around the corner.
It's worse than that.
Say that, everything's corrupt and we're not?
Yeah. It's worse than that. They're demonizing Putin every chance they get. It's pretty crazy.
It is. You bet.
So what else did I want to ask
you? Is it easy to move to Russia?
No, they still have very strict visa things. Would you like to go over there? It's cold. I think it's cold in the winter.
It's cold here in the winter.
I want to check out that crystal pyramid city, though. That looks really interesting. It's
a crystal pyramid city.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go, Darren. What do you think about that? You want to go there? We move to Russia and live in the crystal pyramid city?
You go first. Let me know how it goes. Maybe I'll come later.
Well, kind of on that subject, I wanted to ask you about your study on heart that you had in your presentation as well, and the 360 senses. That was interesting to me.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so again, in Russia, I was invited by Dr. Konstantin Korokov to speak at that conference, and he spent many years developing this machine, which is electrophotonic imaging, and it actually measures the luminescent fields that come off the human body, particularly on the fingertips, and then logarithmically goes up the meridian to show the condition of the human aura and the alignment and the energetic values of the chakra system.
Wow. So it's kind of like a new technology over the Kirlian photography from before?
That is precisely what it is. But it's just like going from a 1 megapixel camera to a 15, right?
Right.
A lot more information, a lot more detail that you can use. And that's the same basic thing as the ground penetrating radar where you lay the wires on the sand and the ones that you get from space.
Right.
It's just it's like a 4K TV, right? It's much, much, much better. And so I wanted to see what the effect of the Great Pyramid would be on the human aura and the chakra system, looking for entrainment between the chakras, because spending so much time in the Great Pyramid starting in 1977, I was starting to be pretty sure that it was contributing to me becoming more psychic. And I wondered if that could be measured scientifically. Mm-hmm. So I did a longitudinal study going from 2010 to 2012 with hundreds of readings of people who had spent 2 minutes inside the sarcophagus. So I measured them on a baseline away from the pyramid at the hotel. And then they got into the sarcophagus for 2 minutes and then came out and immediately did the test and then a post-test later to see about the integration. And it was a quantitative research study, very, very high statistical probability that there's less than 1 in 1,000 chances that it happened by accident. And Hakeem would talk about 360 senses that were dumbed down to 5. And what would that look like? And so, I stood a goddess in a sphere, and all the cross-quarter points are places of transmodal connectivity. So the essence scientifically is looking at the term synesthesia, meaning cross-sensory perception. Mm-hmm. So you would hear a picture and see music, right? And all things in between. So when there is communication between the auric field and the chakra system that's connected to the glands, we get more information, which is like the hair standing up on your arms and a feeling of even repulsion. It's like it's information. You don't know why somebody talking to you, it gives you the sense that they're lying, but something is telling you, and that the more that we can open up and engage these cross-sensory perception, the more psychic we become. And so I actually was able to demonstrate that scientifically.
Wow. So you showed increased coherence between the chakra auras sort of after being in the tomb of the Great Pyramid?
It's not a tomb. It's
right.
A consciousness device.
Sorry, the Faraday cage that brings you out of body?
Pardon?
I mean, the Faraday cage that induces out-of-body experiences, that place?
No, that's a separate thing altogether. The pyramids, I think, were used, the so-called sarcophagus, I think it was used by high-level initiates in formal rituals to practice leaving the body in an attempt to understand how to navigate the dimensional fields once we dropped this earthly incarnation.
Wow.
And so that would start to break apart the hold that 3D reality has on us and allow them, but the trick was to return with consciousness. So, I think that there's a lot that went on in there that was contributing to consciousness. And there's a lot that's going on in our culture that's taking consciousness away or not allowing it to develop.
Yeah, well, it's only a matter of time before the science and, like, we had the heart math guys on here once as well, right? And even just showing the difference between the coherence of your heart signature being in a state of love or hate is different. So, I mean, it's all going to start to seep into the mainstream, I believe, eventually, just to shows, what that our spiritual state can be shown scientifically or however you want to describe it. So what was the part that I interrupted you on there? So you showed that increased coherence from people that were in the Great Pyramid then?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Very, very strong results. A strong statistical correlation that it didn't happen by accident. One in less than 1,000. Less than 1 in 1,000 that it happened by accident. But the other thing is that I think what people are doing is they're looking to the internet and alternative media more than the real media. And real media and TV is kind of weakening and people are less interested. And so it's more of a fertile ground to make these kinds of discoveries and to turn this into what's common. This is becoming a normal, these kinds of correlations. But to me, it's all matriarchal, where it's, and again, that doesn't mean women are dominating men. It means that things are relating to each other. And what's hidden is open, and what's symbolic is valued, and collaboration and new ways of being and thinking that bring us together, that are about being healthy and natural. And all of the other things are making us unhealthy, and it's all unnatural. So as people, start to look and poke a little hole and look through and say, wait a minute, and then once you start to question, you usually keep questioning. And I think that this movement is really gaining momentum. Yeah.
And then there's some really cool stuff you're doing lately, like with basically utilizing some of the newest technology. You, Darren, and I were talking about your quadcopters at ancient sites and some potential for 3D, 360-degree viewing. Do you want to talk about some of the cooler, newer stuff coming up?
Yeah, well, it's not potential because I got the final model of the thing today, and so quadcopter is 4,000 pixels across, and it's aerial footage. And there's a technique. There's two different apps. One's called Drone Deploy, and the other one's called Pix 4D. And basically, it's an automatic program where you set up these parameters of your location. The GPS shows up and usually you're just running it off a smartphone in the joysticks that run the quadcopter. And so there's 7 different checks. It's complicated. Firmware, battery power, things, GPS, yes, and you go through 7 things, and then it, check. If you get the 7 right, which means your whole system is set up properly, a little green airplane shows up. You've got the quadcopter in front of you. You touch the green airplane on your phone, and here goes the quadcopter up over to the site, and it makes a series of overlapping pictures, right? It's just snapping the pictures automatically, and then when it's done, it goes up, and it comes back, and it lands right in the spot where it took off from and turns itself off. So
we need one of those.
It's really amazing. So then, you take the card, and of course I made the mistake of letting the data upload in the field when I first got it, and I went through 20 gigs of data in 2 days. So you turn that part off, and then you go home and upload it to their server, And there's something about the overlapping pictures, and you can also do oblique, so you have a different angle. And there's automatic ways that you can monitor the site. And the computer software knows where to stitch things together. And what it does is it exports to a 3D model. In fact, we were wondering if I was going to share my desktop, and this may be an excellent time to do that.
Sure.
So here is Newgrange.
Oh, Newgrange in Ireland?
Yes, so I sent the crew to Ireland with the quadcopter while I was at the Global Pyramid Conference, and you can see the trees don't work out very well, so you can just replace those. And this is a true 3D model. You can even look underneath it, and it made this automatically, so you see all the pointer stones and whatnot and how it's put together. So that's one of them, and the other one is Noth.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
It's very cool. So this is the one I got today. So you see how the trees are a little goofy?
Yeah.
Over here. But all of these different mounds mean something, and, it's a lunation calculator, this, and the other one is a precessional calculator, and so you can see how there's stones up here, but you can see how it's a true 3D model, and so then the animators take this, and then we've got all the calculations that James Swagger did, showing that, some of these sites are connected to the Pleiades, and some are connected to Cassiopeia, and it's a serious precessional calendar or calculator. And so then we have a 3D animator come and put the sky back on, and so you can see the sky-ground correlation within that. But then the next step is we have a four-dimensional engineer who says that if we have true 3D animations that you can send a camera angle anyway through, that we can have them and you can be an avatar on the website once we get there. And then you can walk in and look around and go around and just do what I did. And you become the one that sets the camera angle. So we'll have sets of these sorts of things and you can go and experience them. So we've got Stonehenge and we've got 4 stone circles or these kinds of things in Ireland and Avebury and Glastonbury Tor and various sacred sites that are speaking to a larger picture, and people will actually be able to experience it themselves if that works. But it sounds like it's the cutting edge and that it's really coming to us now.
Oh, yes, it's not far at all.
And all of that on the Pix 4D is free. It's free.
Yeah.
It's an app. You just have to be clever enough to figure it out. So I do have a crew here, that tested things and worked it out. And, we practiced and developed the skills to fly, because you're not just photographing with this, you're flying as well. So that was one part of the assignment. The other one is getting our aerial footage of the place, which they did. So, and I got this today.
Wow.
And when he was uploading to our server while I was in Chicago, speaking at the conference, and I was downloading it the night before, and then I was able to show in my presentation quadcopter footage, aerial footage that was shot the day before. Wow, and I had Chicago. So it's like, that works for me.
That's great. We're really not far from, my sister works for a virtual reality developing game developer. Mm-hmm. And they're using this HTC Vive is the first platform they've ported to, but they're going to have other ones like Oculus Rift and all. But so we're not far from actually just being able to put on those goggles and do what you guys are doing and walk around those sites, like physically walk around inside even and outside and see the whole thing. I mean, we're going to be so close to like virtual tourism to these ancient sites.
Well, and people don't want to travel anymore just in time, but there's another device that slides over your iPhone and has another camera in it, and anything you point it at, it gives you the 3D of the couch or the room. And that's not even very expensive.
Do you know? Have you heard of that one, Darren? What do you do? It attaches to your phone, or?
I used to have a lens that went on my phone that made it fisheye or telephoto. Uh-huh. And so it's a thing that slides over the edge, and it's almost big. It's a little bit bigger than it'll work on an iPhone or smartphone or a tablet, and it has another camera on it, so it triangulates between the two cameras, and then everything you point at, you can take 3D pictures of it.
Oh wow!
Not even kidding.
How much is the little adapter thing? I wonder where you'd get that. Amazon must have it.
No, they have them from the website, and I'm forgetting at the moment what the website's called, but $379 US.
Jeez.
So, of course, I want one, and I wanted one the second I saw it.
Yeah.
I don't have one yet, and my friends are laughing at me, but I'm probably going to get one.
What else you got? What else you got going on in the future? Any conferences and other types of like you guys are gonna carry out this drone copter footage and sort of turn that into a website or something like that? Is that gonna?
It's another series. I've got the series called The New Atlantis, which is the sequel to the Pyramid Code.
Oh, I see.
At the moment, it's 5 episodes, and it's got original footage from 11 countries, underwater footage, aerial footage, balloon footage, on the ground, on the move, from a boat, it goes on. And so that's what all this is for. So I'm going to be going, I'm going to meet, Bruce Cunningham from Ancient Mysteries International is pulling together a multi-country conference in April, and he's invited Klaus Donna, all the key players that I'm talking about here, Dr. Sam from the Bosnian Pyramids, Red Milo from the Project 12, me, and inviting people to come, and we're going to go to Angkor Wat. We're going to spend time on a remote Filipino island off the coast of Cebu, the Camotes, which is just fabulously gorgeous with turquoise water and white sugar sand, just the way I like it. And then we're going to go to Nan Madol, which is a very little travel to site because it's quite expensive to get there. And so it's a conference. It's a conference at a university. It'll be the 15th country I get to speak in, which is kind of cool. So it's a real university conference that goes over the scientific presentations of all these people, and then we're actually going to go and explore some new sites that are little known.
Wow! And do people get to join you guys, or is it just?
Yeah. And Bruce is quite brilliant at making it as inexpensive as possible. The other thing is in modules. So if you want to come just for the middle part, or then go off and do something else, it's possible. And so that's April 26th to 30th. 26th to 30th is the actual conference, and then there's activities before and after.
Wow.
So that'll be like a real meeting of the minds.
Yeah, that'll be great.
So there's a lot of people who are standing up on stage and doing presentations, but there's not that many that have got original data. They're really doing scientific studies that demonstrate things, beyond question. And so this group is that level of science.
Wow.
Have you been to Rapa Nui yet?
Yes, I have.
That's expensive to get to too. I found. I was looking at how to get there from there, and I couldn't fly there for less than I want to say like $2,800.
Wow.
Well, it's like going to Hawaii from LA from Santiago, Chile. It's a 7-hour flight from Chile.
Yeah, I think for me, I have to go from here to LA to San Juan or something like that down in South America, and then from there to Chile to. It was crazy. It was took me 3 days to get there, 2 or 3 days to get there.
No, and you cross the international date line. No, it's definitely very, 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 very far. But I was already in South America, so I took the extra little trip between Lima and Santiago, and then I bought a local flight from Santiago to Easter Island. Which
is probably a whole lot cheaper than going through Expedia.
Yeah. I think it was only $800 or something.
Oh, that's not bad.
What did you think of it then?
Oh, it's the most amazing place. And the other thing, though, is at the beginning, I was just walking around by myself looking for moais, and it's like you can walk for miles and never see them. You sure have to know where they are. And it's not a big island, but these things are strategically placed. And as luck would have it, there was a big tsunami that knocked down that right beside Ranu Raraku, the biggest one that has the 14-foot statues on the 12-foot pedestals, and they had all fallen down. But there was a picture of what it used to look like, and then they photographed all the scattering of these things, and it took them 2 years to put the thing back together in the computer, and then it took them 2 years to put it back together in real life, and I got there 3 weeks later after they had finished.
Oh,
so
bonus.
That was really cool. It's fascinating. There's no question.
There's a bunch of, I think a lot of the excavations for that are underwater. A lot of the old quarries are now succumbed to the water.
Well, that whole area down in Southeast Asia, I lived in Taiwan. I worked as a professor there, and I traveled a lot in Southeast Asia. And if you go to folk music, folk dancing, villages of the past, that sort of thing, it's all the same. They all wear red, white, and black. They all have spirals. Their boats are all the same design, and they wear feathers. And if you take pictures of all of them, you'll go, but there's something much more similar to all of these different mountain tribes that go from one end to the other. So we know that there was a big change in the water table.
Yeah.
Big change.
So when does your show come out? The new one.
I was hoping to have it done by July, and of course you run into editorial delays and whatnot. So I'm not exactly sure, but I'd be hard pressed to have it take longer than October. But this is a huge undertaking. Original music composed, and it has to make sense. And there's a lot of things, like Atlantis is quite obscure. So I'm really looking to show what do we know now about Atlantis, and how we've been misguided to think it's all a fantasy. And so if I thought the Pyramid Code was a challenge, this is a lot more of a challenge. But I'm getting there. I've got all my footage. I've been working with an animation team for 4 months. Do
you have any distribution rights in place yet?
Well, I'm working on that. I've just been waiting actually on pins and needles for confirmation about how that's going. So it could be really good. And there's some other places that I've been invited for either extra episodes or another project, but to film. There's 3 25-foot giants in Ecuador. And there's 3,000 artifacts that were found in the Pyramid of the Feathered Serpent at Teotihuacan. And so I've been invited to film that, and it could go far and wide because this is like cutting edge, brand new stuff. So there's some pretty high level possibilities for that.
Yeah, it's kind of hard not to just jump into that. Even if you have to delay your other project, that's kind of hard to pass up.
Both and.
Yeah. So wow, so. Do you think of Atlantis as a one singular place, or more of a culture that was all over the place?
Yeah, all over the place, worldwide seafaring culture.
Yeah.
So do you think we'll be called like
ED in school? Sorry.
Do you think it was like kind of like how we refer to Earth today?
What do you mean by that?
Like we all live on Earth. Like was that what they were calling the planet, or like did they refer to themselves as Atlanteans?
Well, okay, so that's just a specificity that's far too hard to conclude.
For anyone, yeah.
Yeah.
That's, who built the pyramids exactly? Oh, the Anunnaki, but that doesn't give us, that's not true, but that's what people like to say. It's one word, and we know who did it, and we know when they did it and what they called themselves. But, there's lots of clues that fit the idea together and show that Plato really was speaking the truth, but we have been over-focused looking for it in the West and Santorini and all of that. That doesn't mean it wasn't there. But I've got some very, very conclusive information about tying the whole thing together and making perfect sense of what Plato was talking about on 33 different points.
Okay, this 33 keeps coming up.
What they ate. No, but the things like, that had dolphins and whales and, the kinds of horses and really right down to the DNA of certain fruit and the seasons and all the details that he spoke about. You can get like 42% of those at Troy or something, but you can't get 100% of them. There's only one place that's got 100% of them, and I'm going to make you wait to see New Atlantis.
Fair enough.
October?
So hopefully this year anyways, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. And it could go faster. Like once we get this new situation in place, it could be that we get a really big team of animators, of editors to make it go much faster.
Right.
So it's you can't believe how much footage and how many stories. And so it really needs to have, the problem is that many people who start out wanting to do editing for it don't understand the material. And so it's really hard to make sense of it and to not get bogged down going, what is all this stuff? Because it's new. It's not a repetition of anything you've seen before, as the Pyramid Code wasn't either.
Yeah, it must be hard to let that go, like to subcontract the editing. For you must want to just go through it all yourself because, like you said, you don't want to be leaving out very important little pieces of the puzzle that somebody just thinks, is not relevant.
Well, I can't just hand over the whole thing and say, here, find a story. That's not how it's done. That may be how they do The Bachelorette, but that's not, you got 3 months of footage, you got 10 people, find a story, and start with people who are crying.
Yeah.
But with this, everything in there is in there for a reason, and the story is in me. So it absolutely necessitates that I can see and give feedback and organize the team. And they don't do anything just because they think so. It's got to be strategic.
Are you going to get more into speculating on old technologies and crystal power and that kind of thing?
It's all there.
Yeah. Because I'm fascinated to see that, because I think there's something as well with crystals. I want to do a show getting into more on the crystals, because there is there's that is it piezoelectric electricity that comes off it. I mean, there is something there, but I mean, it's just got such a new age sort of bad rap in a way. But I like.
Well, this is old age. This is way back then. And the other thing is, the Pyramid Code gave us a sense of the precession of the equinoxes, 26,000 years. Well, 26 more and 26 more. Like, we can start tracking time in a different way, and imagine that this culture developed and lived peaceably for a long time. But again, just the same thing as the pyramids or tombs, which isn't true. We try to say the Atlanteans were doing all these experiments with animals and humans, and they got corrupt, and God sent the flood. Well, we're long overdue for a flood if corruption is causal to floods.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with the Coral Castle content?
It's part of it. It's part of the story.
Oh, is it? Oh, perfect.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to, and I've got James interviewed talking about that material, and then I've got a full shoot with the quadcopter footage that I took myself at Coral Castle, and we're telling the story. We're interweaving all these stories of the old and the new, and what was the technology, and yep.
So what about it? Are you going to try to incorporate this new stuff about the giant's bones in Ecuador and all that? I mean, that could fit in there as well.
Well, it's part of the original treatment, because I was invited. We thought we were going to be able to do an excavation there, and then it got delayed. So I was signed on to be the one that did the videography. And anyway, so we won't finish it by the time.
Right.
Not sure if we'll see, or there's going to be more than 5 episodes here. There's lots more stories to tell, particularly if I'm properly funded. Then we just go to all these places and tell all the stories, or many of them.
Yeah. That's such a big challenge, that funding, yeah.
Well, for sure it is, for sure.
So is there anything you think that we left out that you want to mention before we start wrapping it up? It's already been over an hour. It's flown by.
Yeah, I suspected it would fly by. Well, just the evidence of matriarchal cultures like at Göbekli Tepe and Çatalhöyük and all these places in Turkey that have evidence of Amazon priestesses 42,000 years old and that sort of thing.
Ironically, in Turkey.
Well, it's all very ironic, like even Greek thing, what's going on in Greece and even like on the Turkey-Syria border. And now I'm thinking in terms of the planetary system. But there's lots of monkey business, but there's a find that I've also been privy to see pictures of that were just taken with cell phones that's not very old at all. And it's absolutely enormous. I've got 147 pictures and 8 movies of roomfuls of stuff that were found in actually 10 rooms in a mountain in an undisclosed location. That's all matriarchal, artistic gold, angels, feminine, goddesses, and not a single spear or warring anything. And so this is the jackpot, I'm telling you.
Wow. Can you give us a continent?
No.
Not even a continent?
No.
Okay, that's...
I won't tell you.
Hemisphere? How about a hemisphere?
It's on Earth, right?
It's on Earth.
Yeah.
In the northern hemisphere. Okay. You got that. Anyway, but again, though, monkey business, government controls, who knows what. I don't know if we'll get in there, but I do have this footage now, and I don't have to hide it. I will hide it until we know if we're going to go in there.
Yeah.
But just like with the Hawara, we've got the scan. We've got the details. This stuff exists. And so to me, having studied matriarchal cultures and looking at all the goddess-centered things all over the world for all these decades, it's totally ironic that somehow I was told about this. And you can Google it, and you're not going to find anything because nothing's out of the bag yet.
Yeah.
So, in other words, lots of material for other series and other episodes.
Yeah, that's great. And that's the real paradigm-changing stuff, because we think that our history was just full of war constantly, and that's just a part of human nature. And I don't buy that. I think we're more cooperative in nature than competitive. And it pisses me off, the whole thing about it always comes back to, we're always we're always at war, we're always trying to beat each other up and all that. I don't buy it.
History's when the soldiers came.
Yeah.
And there was all kinds of life and cooperation and health and beauty and no taxes, utilities, insurance, or interest.
Yeah, that's a whole other subject.
Interest
and
is a
if
bit.
somebody wants to make it free, get rid of them.
Yeah. Right on.
Having to work and just being able to be creative, and everybody works in the garden and gets it organized, and we do it all together.
Yeah.
Can we still have our iPads?
Yeah, sure. Doesn't mean that we can't be technologically advanced.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for coming on, Carmen. It's been great chatting with you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
I can't wait till it's such exciting times, man. All these discoveries. It gives me hope that we're going to get to see some more stuff in the next couple of years.
I can't wait till October on hopefully Netflix.
Yeah. and
But I have Amazon Prime and stuff too, so.
So we'll see. It could be sooner than that. I don't want to say. But I'm telling you, it's taken a long time to get it to this point. So yeah, this is definitely the tail end of it.
Well, whatever format you come out on, whatever platform you come out on, I'll purchase it and I'll be watching it. So.
Okay.
Right on. Well, thanks so much, Carmen.
You're welcome.
Okay. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye.
And what?
Oh, I could not get audio data. Auto retry after the button is clicked. No?
No.
Stop that?
Stop that. That was a chat with Carmen Boulter.
Yeah. Yeah, what a good sport, eh?
Yeah, I didn't realize she was the creator of the entire creator. I thought she was just in it.
No.
I bet you most of our listeners have seen it, I would guess.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
I've seen it 2 or 3 times, I think. It's one of those ones I can just throw on like a Saturday night or whatever when you're on the couch. I'll just cycle through them all.
It's really kind of open. I thought Egypt, we've done it before a little bit, and I always think, there's not much new stuff there, but even though the pyramid code is older, it kind of opened my eyes a little bit.
Laval's in it quite a bit.
Yeah, and then this book from James Brown is really, I think you're going to dig it. It's kind of scientific, as far as hey, this is what it could be.
You just like the nipple clips.
I do, the solid gold
Nipple clips.
I'll volunteer for James.
He's just melting down your old necklaces, your old 80s necklaces, get them turned into nipple clips. Well, my motorcycle battery might be just right.
20 volts. That's the trick.
What if we just fray some wires and touch your nipples?
It's not about the nipples. That's just one of the zones.
We'll hook one, we'll wrap one around your testicles.
Gold around your fingertips and your sandals.
And then you have the Midas touch.
Yeah. So we'll talk more about that. But what did you think about the interview?
It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exciting stuff. She's been touring around Egypt for so long, and she's got lots of cool documents. Hopefully we can put some of that in the...
I can't wait for the new series.
Yeah.
Did she say how many episodes? I don't think she did.
At least 5.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, look forward to that. Big thanks to Carmen for coming on the show. Yeah. Awesome. We might have, I guess we'll have the video of this on the YouTube channel.
Probably, hopefully. But yeah, we should by then.
We'll have the video on the YouTube channel so you guys can check out There's not a lot on the video on this one, but there is just near the end when we talk about Newgrange. There's some video.
No, and we'll throw some presentation pictures in there as well.
You will?
I'll try.
Okay. Yeah. So other than that, guys, head over to big thanks to Carmen for coming on the show. We'll have to have her back on. I can't wait to see the Coral Castle shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, head on over to grimerica.ca/support. Sign up for one of our yeah, I just did that to you guys. Our monthly subscription plans, anything from $1 a month to $30 a month. Sign up for whatever fits your budget. Spam Graham.
GRAHAM.
Instagram
me. You can find us on Instagram, The Grimerica Show.
That's Graham.
And all this stuff is
I do not do
links.
Catterday is not
the links are in the show note for everything. So just find them in there. But yes, follow us on Instagram and send us some pics and all that, or however we do Instagram.
However that works.
Email is graham@grimerica.com.
ham@grimerica.com.
Yeah.
And most important of all, tell your friends about this show. You could always do that by signing them up for the newsletter, grimerica.ca/news. I think that about wraps it up.
Right on. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for listening, guys, and we will see you next week.